So welcome, everyone. Teresa Flood is here from Flood Media Group. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sure.
Teresa's here to talk about something she's very passionate about, which is taking the weight off of other ad agencies and their buying departments and offering them what I believe you like to refer to as your Wheelhouse Solution. Can you explain, please?
Yes, I'd be glad to. At Flood Media Group, our background allows us to know exactly what a full-service media buying and planning department is going through. One of our processes is that we can step in when they're in an overload position in the amount of markets and clients.
So you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the market.
I would not even pretend to know every single market and, the things that make it unique. But that is part of what we do offer.
So essentially what we're paying you to do is just go in there, hit the ground, and do some research.
Absolutely. Either we help in the beginning with creating that plan for the client, or we jump in once it is approved, and we as buyers alongside you and your team go in and begin to work with the stations and literally make that mission happen on your time frame and, of course, on client delivery schedule.
So to sum up in a nutshell what you do to make a person's life easier, can you put that in just one succinct overview as to why we need you?
Well, I think that the most succinct way of saying that would be that when you and your staff are absolutely overloaded on your desks, you are spending an excess of 60 hours or more a week. The cleaning person knows your name. Your children are missing you, you're missing plays, and everything has blown up in your life over really good things that are happening inside your company, large buys from large clients. We can step in and help alleviate some of that overtime, all of that stress and duress, if you will, by literally just joining forces with you.
So you take the pressure off the agencies so they can be more strategic in their buying.
Exactly. And the reason that I say work alongside your staff is that if you have 4 buyers in your department, we can step in with 2 or 3 of ours. We will have the same amount of markets, working off the same agenda and program. And instead of needing to have an additional full-time buyer on staff for the full year, you can have Flood Media Group step in on a 3-month or on a project-by-project basis.
Teresa, you seem very knowledgeable in this department. Can you give us a little bit of a background as to how you got so good at this?
Yes, I'd be glad to. I started back in 1981, just a few years ago, in Dallas, Texas. I was lucky enough to start with Young and Rubicam. After a year of media assisting, I got to start buying. I cut my teeth on Dallas, Texas as a market. So as I grew at that group and then changed after a few years and moved to different advertising agencies and clients, the fact that I was able to grow up in that large of a company and that big of a market, it helped me to never feel intimidated by any market that I or the other buyers that work with me needed to introduce ourselves or our clients to. No market was ever too big. Give me New York City after Dallas. I'm ready.
Is any market too small?
Absolutely not. There is no station or paper or any advertising entity too small or big for us.
Teresa, I've heard you talk before about a major pizza chain that you helped from the other side of the fence as a media buyer. So you are certainly no stranger to that side of the business and how time-consuming that can be. Can you go into that a little bit and tell us how that's maybe taught you to help agencies from that angle?
Yeah, I remember it like it was just last week. We were all in the same buying department working on a very large pizza chain. We had all of the Southwest region, which what that meant for me and 4 buyers was 31 markets. There were 2 separate flights of both radio and television, and we had about 5 weeks that we needed to initiate that relationship, negotiate those buys, and then obviously select and then create the schedules. During that time, as good as my buyers were, as good as we all had been, we had asked for and had gotten such a large responsibility from that client. It pulled the wheels off our wagon. We did make it happen, but there were some cuts and some steps that weren't taken in getting those schedules together, that once everything was placed, schedules were delivered to the client, and we got on air with our station partners, we started feeling the pushback. That's not the rate I gave you. There were errors both in the placement, and then we really, really saw the bottleneck on the auditing part of that because we did not have enough time to put to this project. The back end through our accounting department was a nightmare. So in the time that we had and should have spent on this project, it actually blew up into more time spent because we did not reach out and get additional buyers to step in and facilitate.
So back then, if you'd had a company like Flood Media Group to help you, it would have saved all of that chasing things around and dealing with paperwork and chasing down all the people that you needed to talk to.
Oh, absolutely. You know, like I mentioned, the time spent on the details going in on a negotiation and then a schedule, if you can take that time to really set it up properly in the beginning, you won't have that back end discrepancy and errors like that. So, yes, I do know firsthand.
So, Teresa, at this point in the series, we do like to try to focus on a specific example of something that you did to make someone's life easier. Can you give us a good, specific story and inspire us?
Oh, absolutely. Our most recent success story was an advertising agency out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They had exactly what I've been talking about, a wonderful client, very, very large, and so many markets that they could identify within their buying department, they weren't going to be able to handle it. We had a previous relationship with this media director, so she called my group and asked, within this time frame, could we step in and take on 15 of their markets? And we could. It worked in our scheduling, so we were able to step in remotely with us here and them in Minneapolis. We could speak through their same buying system, which was Strata. We could feed in, create our schedules right along their same guidelines, and they were able to not only accomplish the project, but we actually were a little bit ahead of the client's schedule, which, you know, that's just everybody's partying at that point. You know, we got the AEs happy, and so it was just a real win-win situation. And for me, as an old media director myself, to have one feel so comfortable with us and the way that the project went, and then to be able to go through such a large operation and come out feeling so proud and not so rode hard, hung wet, it was just wonderful.
Teresa, I know there are some companies out there that think it's cheaper to have a staff buyer that's just in charge of that than to hire an outside company like Flood Media Group. Can you talk about the differences between those two approaches and maybe which one's better? Obviously, we know which one you're going to pick, but tell us how are they different?
Oh, yes. If you have to, because of projects that come up across the year, they're not an everyday level of busy that's in your department. If you hire an additional buyer, you have increased, obviously, your payroll and everything about what you pay
all the
for
benefits,
your department.
Yeah, it's a big
Absolutely.
department.
By bringing in Flood Media Group across the year as those projects do come up and you need additional staff, we are considerably less expensive than everything that it would take for a full year, even an entry-level buying position in your department. We've done those calculations with a few partners that we have worked with, and without speaking any specific figures, it just always works where using our abilities and our group will alleviate that need for you.
The media has changed a lot with every decade. The changes in radio, the changes in newspapers, changes in magazines. Do you see any big changes in the foreseeable future? And how hard is it to keep up with all of the fast-moving changes with technology nowadays in your field?
I think that some of the biggest changes that are coming up are more web-driven and the automation that's available to both advertisers and station partners alike. But one of the things that I know will never change, and it's probably one of the main reasons that I am still very crazy about this industry, is that it will always be people-driven. That's why with my team and clients, we call the stations and we talk to them. When I talk and visit with my station partners, our newspaper, any of my media partners, and they tell me, oh, I never even talked to this one group. They just email and I send. And it kind of makes me crazy a little bit because the loudest dog does get the bone. And not that we're trying to manipulate, we're just trying to create a reason for our people to work harder for us and our clients.
Could you give us some information on how best to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I love the phone. That number is area 417-864-8982. Online, you can reach me at Teresa, Teresa, at floodmediagroup.com. And then our website is floodmediagroup.com.
Okay, so just to recap what we've learned on the show today, first of all, big buys should be celebrated, not survived. There are other options available to agencies that have the potential of expanding their reach without needing to house more full-time staff or buyers. And as we've just learned, using an outside buying arm like that of Flood Media Group is your best bet in terms of reducing costs while taking on more and bigger. Teresa, thank you for spending time with us today and telling us about your company.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure, Steve. Thank you.